Hello, you are listening to On The Topic podcast, the only show that doesn't catch shooting stars, it catches comets. I'm Dan.
And you better have your mittens on because it's a flaming one. And I'm Alex. And yeah, we've got a good episode coming up, Dan. We've got, well, how about you introduce what we've got this week?
Yeah, so this is going to be part one of two. We'll be talking about life in a band. Not any old band, but one of my old bands.
No.
So we'll be talking about Catch Me a Comet. Now, just to sort of give people a bit of a background, Catch Me a Comet was a band that me and a friend started in late 2005, and it sort of naturally grew, and we lasted about 2 years. And I know what people are thinking, like, Dan, this is a little bit narcissistic. Why would you interview your band and talk about it? Well,
bit Tony Stark, Dan.
It is. But that's not really the case.
No.
I think when you get into part two and you sort of listen to Sam, who was the reluctant frontman, I guess, and listen to his interview, we were that awkward age of not quite a teenager, but not quite an adult. But we wanted to reflect the highs and the lows of being a band, but it's not always rosy. People sort of, I guess, think being in a band's great. It's not. But it also captures the things that we've learned, especially as we sort of gotten older and appreciate that experience more, and what we've taken away from it, and how we've applied that to our creative outputs elsewhere. So it's a good one, and I really hope that someone that was our age, so like in their late teens, early 20s, that's in a band picks us up and can sort of take something away from it. And if anyone that did follow us and is listening to this, and I really hope they find some sort of nostalgia as well.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, Dan, that I think you've asked all of the guys for their opinions in terms of, what to do differently or any advice. So as you say, if you know the band when they're doing the circuits, then that's great. But if you didn't, and you're one of the many listeners, listening around the world, then there may be something in it for you to listen to and to take some pearls of wisdom.
I mean, this
week,
this only really came around because for our most anticipated 2021 episode, someone said the most anticipated return of Catch Me a Comet. Well, unfortunately, I can't give you the reunion that you're probably expecting, but I hope this is it. I hope this gives you a bit of Catch Me a Comet nostalgia.
But first up, we've got Todd first, haven't we?
Yes, Todd. So, bit of background on our friendship. I met him through my cousin at a Bowling for Soup gig way back in 2002, and we sort of stayed friends, well, ever since, really. And we started the band together late 2005, and I'm sure he mentions this. We first started rocking out in his parents' garage. It sounds not appealing, I guess, but his garage was decked out. It was like a full soundproof room, lovely floor. We had to just get heaters in there in the winter. It did get cold.
Good man cave.
Yeah, I think his dad made it into a bar later on in life.
What a legend!
What a legend! Good old Colin. Yeah, so we were sort of bouncing between each other's houses, often in my room, my bedroom as well, at my parents, writing some of the songs that sort of came out naturally. So this is Todd. Todd, how's it going?
Hi, Dan. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. We've managed to arrange a show, getting the old gang on board. Obviously, it's mediated, so I'll be interviewing one at a time. But I mean, you're my first interview, which is, I suppose, quite cool because it was basically me and you that set the band up. Yeah.
I guess. Throw it back how many years? I can't even think now. I should have done that research before. It's been, I remember sort of sitting in your bedroom, playing some riffs and jamming out. That's how it all started.
Yeah, and then we started like jamming in your shed, and I think you had like some geezer from like a year or two below you. Because
Yeah.
I mean, just for the listeners' purpose, there's a bit of an age gap between us. I'm 35, and you're what, 30 now?
I'll take that. I'm 31, 32 soon.
There we go. It's not too bad. So I mean, there is an age gap, and I think this poor lad, like he was a great drummer, but I'm sure he came in every time high as a kite.
Do you know what, actually, a bit of a cool story. He started an indie band a few years ago, and they had a lot of sort of European success. I can't remember what they were called. But yeah, no, he was a real talented kid, but you're right, he was completely baked. Didn't even know what was going on. Nor did we, so it's fine. We had fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what have you been up to? Like, what's been keeping you busy in the pandemic? Because, I mean, ideally, I would love to have had you all sort of individually in the room behind a microphone, but that's not possible.
For sure. Yeah, I think trying to work through house renovations, working where I can, started playing piano,
Nice.
which is good. And I think it's good to sort of keep your fingers in the pie of music. And now trying to learn how to sort of read dots and how, understand that music theory side. That's been really cool, because it's sort of like the penny drops and you're like, oh, that's why we used to do it that way, and certain chord progressions used to work. Yeah. So that's been quite a bit of a really cool thing to do, and throw some time at. Apart from that's pretty much it. Trying to stay in contact with people and stay positive and walk and eat healthy. But as we were talking before, we jumped on air. Yeah. It's not going well with the takeaways.
No, again, for the listeners' purpose, we were just discussing that we've been eating a lot of takeaway, and I drink a lot of craft beer, which I'm sure I've probably mentioned in previous episodes. I mean, it's not a good way of living at the moment. I'm sort of looking forward to about walking back to work every day.
Just walk.
Yeah. Just go for a walk. I mean, obviously, we were sort of in the band. We started it, and it sort of ended around 2008. So there was obviously a lot of like highs and lows.
Yeah.
I mean, what were your personal sort of high points being in Catch Me a Comet?
I think the sort of friendship and, there were some cool sort of shows we done, and really proud of the sort of EP at the time. But I think the friendships we made and the connections we made, the people we still speak to now through bands, I'm not going to name drop because you're out to sort of explain the background. But there's people that I speak to sort of, whether it be weekly, monthly, yearly, that were from interactions of us within that band. That's cool. And also how to communicate with each other. I think songwriting, how people communicate in a room, and sort of constructively criticize each other. I think that's a real good life skill.
Yeah. Definitely.
So for me, that was a good takeaway.
I mean, I think still going back to those friendships and like where we were sort of together in the room, I think some of the best songs we wrote were when we were all together.
Yeah.
I think about that kid. I mean, unfortunately, people can't listen to our MySpace anymore because MySpace went and deleted everything. I managed to sort of trawl through the rummage and all the crap that was left on there. There's not a lot. I found some gig posters. That was quite cool.
A bit from the past, yeah, absolutely. And I think that being in the room and sort of that collaborative feel, and joking around and sort of sleepovers and going out drinking and getting naked in a shed, which
oh mate,
I don't know whether anyone else is going to bring up.
I mean, the week we recorded that EP was a good week. I don't know how Joe Marsh, he recorded us. He was one of our good friends in Splendid Eddie, and for whatever reason, we never fitted in with our sort of punk scene. We always seem to fall into the ska scene, but I mean, it's a different story. But I mean, Joe looked after us. He recorded, and we survived on Lucozade that week.
Do you know what? That week, there's a few things that sort of spring to mind when you say about that week. One was that Joe stayed in my parents' garage without them knowing for a whole week, and lived on burnt toast. So every morning he used to get up quietly, make some toast with no butter because he didn't like butter or anything, or sauce or jam or anything, and take him the toast down to the garage without my parents knowing. And then the second one was that we used to sort of attach stuff to the drum kit. So I remember like a door, almost like a doorknob that was attached to the kick drum to make it sound punchier. So it was literally metal on this drum skin. I don't know why that sprung to my mind, but it's just crazy. But it's actually a good sounding EP. If you listen back, some of the songs hold up quite well.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I was reminiscing. I think that's probably how it all sort of came up. I was listening to it just before Christmas, and in our Christmas films episode, I sort of dropped it in there because Sam left us a message to sort of talk about, and I was like, shout out to Sam, catch me a Comet, used to be in a band, blah, blah, blah. And then funnily enough, I mean, this has only really come around because someone dropped on our Instagram for most anticipated 2021. And they were like, most anticipated Catch Me a Comet reunion, anyone? I don't think it will happen, but I mean, the door's always open my end if anyone ever wants to get back together.
For sure. Do you know what? Even like last year at some point, I sort of rented a drum studio just to play some drums in a room, which is weird. I know it sounds so weird, and I'm not a crazy person. But do you know, if there was the opportunity to sort of jump in a room and make some noise, it'll be bad noise, but I think it'd be quite fun.
Yeah.
I'd be completely up for it. I mean, what could go wrong?
Do you know what? I wouldn't even want to play a live show. I think it would just be great to maybe re-record some of those songs and maybe write some new ones. I mean, I'm sat on stuff that's on my SoundCloud now, and I'm quite proud of, which is ridiculous. I shouldn't say that about my own stuff, but it's true. No,
well, it's cool, and I mean, me and you have a relationship where you ping me musical stuff all the time. You know, I've sent you some piano videos and stuff, and you've sent me loads of riffs and songs and stuff. So, no, it's good. It's good to keep that creative flow.
Yeah, definitely.
So that would be interesting in a room. I wonder. I actually don't know. I haven't spoken to Zak for a little while, but I can't imagine the last time he touched a drum kit. Don't know.
I'll try and find out.
I wonder. Yeah.
I'll try and find out. I'll make a note of that because he's literally up next after you.
Okay, cool.
So, I mean, obviously we've had the sort of the high points. Were there any low points? And how would you, as you're older now, how would you deal with them differently?
I think the conflict aspect. I mean, there's a few things that pop to mind when we used to sort of go at each other about certain things. I think it's just the way it is when you're that creatively and emotionally close. You sort of go at each other. I remember a time when we were recording the EP and Zak, stormed off because he couldn't sing vocals on something, and he went to buy some flip flops in Commercial Road in Portsmouth and come back with the flip flops. They were rad, and but then it always
smashed it, didn't he?
Yeah, he came back and smashed it. That's one of my favourite stories ever. But yeah, I think, and then I guess growing apart from people, me and Zak actually went through a stage probably 5, 6, 7 years ago where we were going to loads of shows to London, in London together, and we stayed in contact. I haven't actually spoke to him probably for 2-3 years now, which is a bit of a shame. I probably spoke to you, Dan, the most. Haven't spoke to Sam for a long time. I guess people grow apart. So yeah, I guess that's probably my only regret, because I feel that was a big chunk of our childhood.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's a shame, like I say, that the dynamic of our friendships have all sort of changed. And I'm quite fortunate that I'm sort of somewhere in the middle where I can still talk to everyone.
Yeah,
and I probably talk to you more than sort of the other guys. And also, I need to try and get Brendan on the show at some point. Nice. Brendan, bless him, secret fifth member, and he looks after us and he looks after our money, which I don't think I ever saw a penny of. That's fine, mate. I mean, I was in it because I purely loved being with you guys and playing live shows.
Yeah, definitely. So Brendan's still a really close friend. So that's definitely a friendship that was forged during the CMAC days for sure.
Yeah. I mean, sort of moving on from Catch Me a Comet, we only lasted 2 years and a bit, maybe. I think we sort of came to a natural end in 2008.
Yeah.
Did you have any musical ventures post Catch Me a Comet? And did you take anything away from the Catch Me a Comet experience that sort of helped you along the way?
Yeah, I think there was a few sort of avenues that I explored like within the industry. So after the band, and actually during the band, I used to run live shows, which gave me a really good sort of fit in for music management. So I managed and developed some young artists. I was fortunate enough to go on tours, did some arena tours as a tour manager, which was really great. And then it sort of come to a close a few years ago. So I think it certainly was a real good foot in the door for all of them. And if I wasn't in the band, I don't think I would have had the confidence to go on and do them weird and wonderful musical related sort of, fields that I've done. So yeah, I'm really, really sort of proud of that.
I mean, you sort of teamed up with our friend Chris Ricketts, and you did an album with him, The Devil Between the Deep Blue Sea. Was that it? Cracking album. Some good stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, that was the sort of production side. So I guess the songwriting and production side, which I quite enjoy. And actually, recently, probably last year, an uncle of mine came over from South Africa, and my cousin and I produced and wrote some of his, tracks, which is quite cool. So that was sort of a little country project. So I'm trying to sort of still keep a musical theme through the life, which I think's it's good, because once that creative juice is flowing, it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, I struggle nowadays. I just don't get the time to sort of really sit down. But when I do, something magic happens. But I always sort of like having that other person to bounce off. I've never been able to do it on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. That collaboration aspect is probably the most fun. And even when you're touring, when you're tour managing, it's not quite the same as being in a band, but sort of that waking up and going and exploring places and working with people and, helping pick them up when they're having a crappy day. So all of that is all sort of skills that were developed from being in the band with you guys. Yeah,
nice. I mean, we might have listeners that are in a band, or maybe some younger people like ourselves. I mean, we were in our late teens, early 20s when we did Catch Me Comet. Would you have any advice or guidance for them if they're listening now?
Get a real job. No, I'm joking. I think, push it as much as you can as a hobby, as a career path. But I think in terms of the way everything's shifted, I've got a cousin in the band at the moment that are getting sort of national radio play. They're getting main sort of Spotify listings and stuff, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and they're all sort of working full-time jobs.
Crystal Tides?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great what they're doing.
Don't be ashamed to name drop, mate.
No, sorry. I tend not to do that. So I mean, it's really good what they're doing, but in terms of the way they're set up, they need to also have full-time jobs. So what I'm saying is push your passion, keep doing what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that all your bases are covered, be able to pay your bills and live comfortably. Because monetizing music, as me and Dan have talked about this extensively before in the past, it's really hard, to get to get even a penny from Spotify. I know that's a whole different episode that we could talk for hours about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to monetize, and especially in this time at the moment, not to be able to tour and sell merch and stuff. It's near on impossible. I don't know how bands are surviving and stuff. So just keep doing what you're doing, but also cover other bases as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I don't know how bands are sort of managing it, because a lot of the revenue for bands come from live gigs and merch. Because unfortunately, piracy is a big thing in the music industry, and I'm guilty of it. I shouldn't endorse it on here, but sometimes I'll download an album, have a quick listen. I think it's shit, I'll just delete it. If I like it, then I will buy it. It's just the way I am.
Absolutely. But I mean, on the flip side of that, I'm a big Spotify user, although I don't agree with the way they don't pay artists, because they're just absolutely naff at paying artists. But if I do sort of really enjoy an album and constantly be going back to it, I will buy it on vinyl or, the digital version. So I try and be fair in that, but still, it's not great,
No.
It's such a weird setup. But then we go to gigs, can you count the amount of gigs we've been to? I reckon it's probably.
Oh, mate, the early noughties were phenomenal. We used to go to like Drive-Through Records gigs at the
Invasion
Wedge.
tours. Do you remember them?
Yeah, it was like the early November, Homegrown. Yeah. Drive-Through Records was such a good label, like especially growing up to.
So ahead of the curve,
music.
man.
It's a shame they don't exist.
Well, that's it. Yeah, so their manager actually, he manages a indie band called Nothing But Thieves. I don't know if you heard of them.
Yeah, I know the band.
Yeah, so he manages them now, and they're so far from pop punk that I just don't even know how that came about. But he's obviously still active and doing weird and wonderful things in the industry, which is cool. But yeah, I actually remember there was a photo of me and you. I'm wearing a Bowling for Soup t-shirt with a plus sign, with like a red t-shirt and like white long sleeve underneath. Yeah. So bad. We're both sort of posing like, do sort of flipping the bird. And I actually remember that.
Mate, I spent years wanting to be like Tom DeLonge. I'm not proud of that anymore. If I'd stayed away from that Tom DeLonge habit, I probably would have been a good musician.
He's good, man. He's good at what he does. Them old Blink. Actually, some friends of ours were talking about what is the best Blink album, and I was going to text you and ask you, and I totally forgot to.
Let's do it now, mate. Let's do it now.
What's the best Blink album?
Enema of the State, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's just purely because that was the first Blink album I ever picked up. I spent 10 quid of my hard-earned money. And that's where it all started for me with pop punk as well. Everything that sort of I listen to now sort of stemmed off from that.
Yeah. Something else that I sort of remember as well. So when Zak was joining, sorry, I'm going completely off the topic of Blink.
We're going back to Catching Me Comet. It's fine. This is what the show's about.
It's making me reminisce. I'm getting all the creative juices are flowing, as I was saying. So when Zak first joined the band, we used to meet him from Fratton train station, but then go to French's Bakery to get a cake and then go and rehearse. And I don't know why. And it was like a weekly occurrence because he lived in Havant, so a little bit further than Portsmouth. I don't know why, because it's the opposite direction to my house from the train station. So this round trip must have taken about 3 hours before we've even sort of plugged our guitars in and started making noise. I don't know why I've just remembered that. I was just like, bakery, oh, Blink.
We used to do all sorts before band practice. We would go to McDonald's in the Portsmouth Centre, like by Fratton Park. Last question. I didn't give you this question. I've purposely left it out. I'm going to put you on the spot. And I want to know why. What's your favourite Catch Me Comet song?
Oh, that's a good question. It's between The Truth Is in the Stars and Happy Summer, Lonely Winter.
Oh, mate.
I think probably Happy Summer, because that was the one that we sat in your bedroom. We wrote the riff, so it was like pure. We were absolutely sort of in awe of Newfound Glory at the time. The sort of lightly panned guitars, both playing sort of clashing, but really sort of nice contrasting riffs. Yeah. And that's what we started with, and playing it, I don't think I'd be able to play it to you now if you give me a guitar. But that's what I remember. And then building on the song, and then it sort of growing into, I guess it sort of became an anthem.
Yeah. I think everyone wanted to hear it, didn't they? Like when we played gigs, it'd be like Happy Summer, Lonely Winter. It'd be like, it'd be halfway through the set or like the last song. But yeah, I mean, this is a really like bad confession to make, but I wrote the intro on the toilet.
Nice.
I'll do that.
I mean, if you can send it over to me and have a listen. The only sort of evidence of of music playing that I've really got is a DVD of my first ever band that was pre-CMAC. That we found the DVD of the other day when we were cleaning out the attic. So that went back in the attic because I never want that to be seen or heard.
Mate,
I'd love to hear it. I know any sort of demos you've got as well. That'd be really cool.
I've got the whole discog, and I've got the demo of Happy Summer Lonely Winter for when we were drinking Jack Daniels or some shit in the shed. I was already hungover from a night before at a party, and it's awful, mate. I definitely think that the version recorded for the EP is like just a million times better, and it still holds up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know how we used to drink Jack Daniels and stuff.
No, nasty, mate.
That's possibly why whiskey doesn't agree with me now, because we were fortunate enough to go to Cyprus last year for my sister's wedding, and on night one, I stayed in the pool to have a last drink and had a whiskey with one of my cousins, and ended up getting put to bed.
Oh dear!
So it's probably stems from the CMAC days where we used to probably drink too much Jack Daniels, and now I just can't handle it.
Let's not forget snake bites.
Snake bites. Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
What do you recall of the Wheatus show?
I remember I'd just flown back from Prague. I'd just been away for a week.
Yeah.
I turned up, right? I mean, you'd all had literally smashed through some of the booze and food anyway. One of the highlights for me, it's not really a highlight. I just remember Wheatus being absolute douchebags.
Yeah.
I think we sort of thought they'd be sort of quite nice guys. The promoter was useless because we were sort of ready to go on at 8, and he kept pushing us back, didn't he? Until I want more people in the hall. And then we went on late, and then when we'd finished, we just hurried on and dragged all our stuff off. They didn't care. And they said, "Oh yeah, we watched your show," and we had friends all sort of around the room, didn't we? We had Joe on the mixer, we had Sam on our monitors, and none of them clocked them at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, playing to 1,000, 2,000 students that night was phenomenal. That's the biggest crowd we were ever going to play to.
Yeah.
Same time, I don't think too much of the band.
No, I agree. So when you say food, did we have a rider? Because I don't remember that.
Yeah, we had chicken baguette and chips, and then they sort of gave us some beer stuff. We didn't get paid any money for it.
No, okay.
I can't remember who the promoter was at the Wedge, because we had a gig at the Wedge 2 days later, and he bollocked us for having the show 2 nights before. He's like, "Why have you done this?" I was like, "Well, we weren't selling the tickets, mate."
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of them beautiful sort of support slots where you just rock up and there's a crowd there. It's like, there you go, free crowd. And I remember, I don't know if am I allowed to say strippers?
Yes,
I am allowed to say strippers. Okay, cool. I don't know whether they're strippers or some sort of weird pole dancers, but I remember having photos, and I don't know whether it's even the same night, but I remember Zak having photos with these people.
Same night, mate.
Was it the same night?
I've got them somewhere. I'll have to have a look through the archives, and I'll send you a picture.
So that is a thing. So that's not something I've fabricated in my weird mind.
No.
Okay, cool.
It definitely happened. But that's brilliant, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the topic, talking about Catch Me a Comet and sort of what you've been up to. Means the world to me, and it's nice to see your face.
You're welcome. You too, mate. And send my love to the boys.
I will do. Take it easy, man.
Cheers, dude. Bye.
It was really nice, sort of, catching up with everyone. Todd was my first interview, which it sounds really strange. Like we both started that band together, and then I think as the interviews go on, as I recorded them with the guys, it was naturally how the band sort of came together. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but that's how it happened.
Yeah, and I think with this particular one with Todd, I really enjoyed the kind of the backstage stories. Literally, you know, the insights into the drunk people at the gigs, and I guess the long-standing kind of issue that a lot of bands have: who drives and how do you get all that equipment up and down the motorway? So I think it will resonate with a lot of people, and it's still an issue today. Well, it's not an issue today because people aren't gigging, but when we can gig, you know, towards the end of the year, hopefully, those problems a lot of people can relate. I think my favourite comment I think from him was when he said that he probably won't thank me for saying this, but I think it's hilarious, where someone gave him some feedback post the band saying that he sounded like Sweet Home Alabama written by Scooby-Doo, which I think is he should probably get that tattooed on his back or something, with a big fat tattoo of Scooby-Doo. But no, I think it's an interesting take on kind of the gigging circuit, and yeah, I enjoyed the conversation with Todd. I think it was a good interview.
Yeah, as a songwriter as well, he's very clever, and I wouldn't say there's been many people that I've sort of really connected with as a musician. I mean, a lot of the stuff we sort of pushed out together with music-wise is very clever, and that's mainly sort of really down to his psyche. I'd give him something and he would make it better. And I guess for me, I mean, I'm talking about the guys overall, they generally set a standard for me as a creative. And they've all gone on to do some wonderful things outside of Catch Me Comet musically, whereas I didn't. And I did try. And I think those expectations were set by those guys, because whenever I did try and sort of go and write music with other people, it just never clicked. Maybe that's me. I don't know. But I say a lot. It's quite sad that I've sort of held off really creatively until we sort of started doing the podcast together, Alex. And, you know, I sort of still get those feels now where a lot of my creative energy goes into this that sort of really draw me back to Catch Me a Comet. It's great.
That's good stuff. You know, I think as we get through this, I still get some kind of indication from the fellow bandmates that there's still that outlet of some way that I think you're all yearning for individually. Now, whether or not, you know, you guys get together, not musically, but just anyway, and then, you know, see whether that spark's still there will remain to be seen. But I think definitely what you're describing, Dan, I think comes through from all the interviews that we hear through the both parts. But we've got Zak up next. So who's Zak, Dan?
Zak's joined us as a band, I think it was around half term in February of 2006. So Zak was one of Todd's classmates, and we were sort of hunting for a drummer for a while, and Zak sort of came along. And I remember going out to Todd's and meeting Zak, and he's quite quirky. He's quite a character. And we actually sort of forged quite a close friendship when the band sort of finally came together. He would often sort of like pop round my house. He loved, for whatever reason, I don't know what it was about these guys. They loved coming over to my house just to sort of talk to my mum. Don't get it, mate. Don't get it. My mum is mad, okay? My friends call her Crazy Mandy for a reason, okay? But no, they'd always come over. But yeah, sort of back to Zak. He would always come over and we'd just play like FIFA or Pro Evo or whatever, or just get drunk. That's generally what you do in your late teens or your early 20s. Yeah, get drunk with your friends. But yeah, it's a shame really. He moved to London. I think we're still friends, but I don't think we probably talk as much as we probably should. But he has started popping up a lot, especially on the topic stuff and getting involved, which is great. But yeah, let's dive into Zak's interview because I'm pretty sure he's a bit punchy fighty.
Yeah, sounds it. Let's have a listen.
Zach, welcome to On the Topic. Thank you for joining me. You were the drummer of Catching the Comet, but what have you been up to? How are things?
Things are all right. I think I'm bearing all right under the strains of the lockdown. But yeah, just kind of sitting around, learning to tile and reading books.
Awesome, man. So that's what you've sort of been up to in the pandemic. Anything else? Have you sort of done anything musically, or are you just sort of past all that now?
Yeah, I think the last time I actually played as a band live was with Catch Me Comet. I've had maybe 1 or 2 jam sessions with people in London, but it's just so difficult with work and that trying to find time, isn't it?
Yeah, man, I hear you. Funny enough, I was talking when I was talking to Todd. He wanted to know when was the last time you played drums.
Actually, with a full band, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago with a couple of friends from work. We just had a little jam session for an hour in a studio.
Nice. There you go, Todd. There's your answer. So, I mean, obviously, we're sort of here to talk about Catching Me Comet. Ironically, this is the way I'm interviewing people sort of got an order of how we've recruited them. So, Todd first, because we sort of started the band in my bedroom in his dad's shed. And then you sort of came on board because I think you knew Todd from college.
Yeah, we went to South Downs College together in the same class.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's where we sort of met most of our sort of mutual friends through there, for your class mainly, mate. We had Sam and Joe Marsh, who I mentioned. Yeah. Joe recorded the EP, and then Sam sort of helped out now and again, and somehow ends up supporting his band a couple of times, and they're a metal band. It's weird, isn't it? Like, I was sort of mentioning this with Todd. Like, we never really fitted in with the pop punk scene in Portsmouth.
Because it wasn't really a pop. It was like punk, wasn't it? And then metal.
Yeah, there was no like in between. Like, we were sort of the Blink 182, I guess, of Portsmouth.
We're laughing around, putting your pants down kind of band.
Yeah, we were just a joke, and somehow we sort of fitted into the ska band. Sort of, it's so odd.
God bless Splendid Eddie, eh?
Thank God for them, because I think we played a lot of our gigs with them.
Yep.
But I mean, do you have any sort of particular sort of high points of being in Catch Me a Comet? Like, was there anything you're sort of proud of?
I think the big one was supporting Wheatus. That was pretty amazing.
Oh, mate. Me and Todd were talking about this. I remember it. He said, do you remember the strippers or like the sort of scantily clad women that we were having pictures with?
Were they? Oh, yes. And they kind of weren't actually that good looking from close up.
It was just, yeah.
I do remember that. What were they about?
I'm not sure. They were students, clearly, right? They had to,
clearly,
because it was a students' night, and like, funnily enough, right? I haven't mentioned this to Todd or anyone, but there was someone in the front row that night who is like one of my other half's best friends, and I don't know why. I just remember his face. Like, he was having such a great time.
That's awesome.
It was only recently he said, "Oh yeah, I went to the Wheatus gig, and there was like a band that supported." I was at the front row. I was like, "Yeah, that was me, mate. I was in the support band." So that's weird.
Wicked. What a small world.
He doesn't remember me, but I remember him, which is weird because I think he was getting like high fives off all of us.
There's someone who likes us, and we love them.
I mean, what did you make of the Wheatus gig? Because this is a question Todd threw back at me. Because I just don't remember Wheatus being like that nice.
No, I remember the singer being a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, I mean,
and doing his own monitors and front of house, so he was running back and forward in sound check. I remember that.
Yeah, he was just a bit of an arse. And I remember them saying, "Yeah, we watched your set," and like they just weren't seen anywhere in that hall.
Yeah, they didn't watch it.
And I mean, do you remember we got bollocked as well? I again, sort of going back to Todd's interview, by the promoter of the Wedge Rooms, because we had a gig 2 days later.
Oh yeah,
he threatened. I can't remember the guy's name, but he threatened to blacklist us. But we still played the Wedge like 2 or 3 times after. So,
do you remember the time of our car breakdown on the way to the Battle of the Bands?
Shit, yeah. Oh man,
looking back, it was really stressful, but now it's quite funny.
Talking of car rides, do you remember the gig in Colchester? What a riot!
Was that the one where you went through the woods?
I can't remember. I just remember
like break a padlock to get through a fence because of it.
Yeah, Christ. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jesus. Oh, mate, the road trips with Catch the Comet were so fun.
They were like another high point. They're like that little pub in Guildford where we almost got in a fight. We like to
Yeah,
play it out quick.
Christ, I forgot about that. I remember that. Didn't like someone get Larry to Todd, and Todd was
I
good,
think
like
so.
threatening to sort of beat him up.
Yep.
Oh, mate. I mean, you literally got into a fight in our what was essentially supposed to be our last gig
Oh,
at the
because that
Wedge.
guy like pushed Brendan or something.
Yeah, I mean, for the listeners' purpose, again, I sort of mentioned earlier with Todd, Brendan was the secret fifth member, and he looked after us. He looked after our money, and some chav got Larry to him and pushed him, and I said, "You nutted, you lumped him, mate! Like there was claret everywhere." Just like this guy was like pouring with blood, and I was like, "Shit, this is not how I imagined the last gig going."
No, remembered it though, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, Sam and Todd sort of got out all right, and me and you had to be escorted to your car by one of the bouncers.
Yeah, because they were waiting for us, weren't they?
Yeah, there was like rumours sort of already floating around the wedge rooms that night, going, "Oh, they're going to come like beat you up afterwards." They didn't, like no one was there. But
Yeah, like obviously, why would they?
Christ, I mean, for the fear of things, we literally got escorted by like some big burly bastard that was bouncing. Like he nearly kicked you out as well. And like me and Todd were like, he's in our band, like you can't kick him out. And like somehow we like swayed it around, and yeah, it was fine.
We'd already played by that point, hadn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
Funny enough, I think because I think Jameson were headlining.
Oh, I remember Jameson.
Yeah, I can't remember what happened. They were either late or something like that, and the pro went, "You're off the bill," and they like, or they played second to last. I can't really remember. Like it's quite hazy. I just
Yeah, I don't remember too
after
much
it all
from
kicked off, it was like, nah,
Yeah.
not ruined. But it was a quite a fun ride home. I mean, would you say it's a low point in particular, or is there a particular low point that
I don't think there's really any. I don't think there's any proper like really low points. I remember when we were recording the EP, there was a few tense moments, and I think I walked out on one of them.
Yeah, you cops because you weren't allowed to do vocals, and you went and bought some flip flops.
That was it. And I can remember why I copped. I remember I copped and I just walked out. And I knew I'd come back, but I could just flip flops. Classic.
I mean, sort of dealing with those sort of particular low moments. Would now you're sort of older and wiser. Like, how would you deal with them now?
Probably realise that I can't sing. You guys are actually just helping me out by not letting me be on the record so everyone could laugh at me.
To be honest, you were quite good. I think at the intro, Good Times Roll, you're like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Beautiful, mate. And I found our live gig at Haven.
The one I remember that. I haven't got a copy of that. I've got the other one somewhere.
I'll ping you the discography. I've literally
definitely.
got everything on my laptop. But yeah, I moved house sort of must have been June time, and I had a box.
Right in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, literally. Mate, I was miserable, but that's a different story for another day.
Yeah.
But me and my missus moved, and I had this box of blank discs, and I sort of listened to him, and the Haven't gig was on there. It's terrible, like it's genuinely horrific. I don't know, like how promoters picked us up to play.
I think we remember after we finished that gig there, we were all like, that was pretty bad.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, my favourite gig was probably the Joiners in Southampton.
Yeah, I like the Joy. We played there twice, didn't we?
I only recall once, but
maybe it was once. Maybe I just went there.
The one that the one that I remember for sure, I think again, Splendid Eddie sort of got us on the bill. It was just such a good night. Like it's a small venue for. I mean,
the atmosphere was amazing, wasn't it?
It was crammed. It was heaved to the rafters. It was like the middle of June, July. It was so hot, and I just remember like pissing with sweat, hammering out the solo of Lost Out, like standing on a monitor and just like this is mental, mate. That was such a good moment. I'm sort of going back to high points because obviously
they're a lot better.
They're a lot better than the.
And I think there's more of them, to be fair. We were all pretty chill most of the time, like 90% of the time. I think it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, a particular low point for me. It would have been the first time we got asked to play the Wedge, and it was around my sort of 21st birthday. I said I can't do it, but you guys still went ahead and did it anyway. And I tell you,
in hindsight, that was a bit of a bastard move.
Mate, it's all part of growing up, isn't it? Like you look back now and go, well, I would have done that differently, but you know, I was a bit of a hothead in my 20s. I don't know why. I've sort of gone in reverse. I've sort of become more laid back as I've gotten older.
I think I have as well.
It's not a bad thing, mate. You know, I always thought I'd get more miserable as I got on with life, but I've sort of stopped taking myself seriously.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I sing like little songs and things to myself to make myself cheered up.
It's always a good shout, mate. That's a good tip for our listeners. If you're ever feeling a bit bummed out, just sing yourself a little tune.
Just make one up. Just sing about what you're doing. Like, I'm making a cup of tea, making a cup of tea.
I love it, mate. I love it. So obviously, Catch Me Comet sort of naturally sort of came to an end. Probably
I went to uni, didn't I?
Yeah, I think we played one last show at the start of 2008, and that was it, really. We never sort of really came back together, which is a shame.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I mean, the
Wow.
door for everyone's always been open for me because I always sort of would love to know what we could do now as a band. Now we're older, more mature, possibly better musicians. It's
I
questionable.
might be a bit rusty, to be honest, but I probably am better if after 2 weeks of getting back in the groove, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, what were your musical ventures post Catch Me Comet, and did you take anything away from the Catch Me Comet experience that sort of helped you along the way?
I've only played drums a couple of times in little practice sessions, so I've done almost no music, but I do work in the music industry, so like from all the playing the little venues and loading our gear and stuff. When I did start working as crew, I kind of knew it not perfectly amazing, but a bit better than I would have done otherwise. So it helped me out.
That's good, man. I mean, that was always the shit part, wasn't it? Like getting set up and packing down. We never had roadies to do that. It was we never got that big.
No,
which is a shame.
Wasn't there one time at the Wedge when we supported Tat and they had some crew and I started moving our shit and we were just like, "The hell are you doing? Who are you? Stop touching our stuff."
Yeah,
she would never seen it before.
No, we were like, "Holy crap! Like, what's going on? Like, you're moving our stuff. You're doing that for us? Okay." We're like, "Well, we only literally live up the road. That's fine." That was a good gig, actually. Was that the one where they had the female vocalist and like she was like smashing out her guitar and like she was standing on your drum kit?
Yep. And the only problem with that was the drummer nicked me pedal.
Oh, mate, yeah, of course.
He swapped it for his less good pedal. I noticed when I got home, I was like, "Damn it!"
Cheeky bastard, mate.
Cheeky bastard.
You owe us a drum pedal, mate, if you're listening. So sort that out. I don't know who listens to the podcast, Zach, I'll be honest. But we've got listeners over 13 countries as far as Australia.
That's awesome.
But if there's anyone that's in a band or they're in a young band like we were 18 to 21, 22, whatever, what advice or guidance would you give them if they're listening?
Just have fun. Don't take yourselves too seriously. Don't do it to make money or become famous. Just have fun. And if you're good enough and lucky enough, you might get somewhere.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I can't disagree with that anymore. Agree. You know what I mean? I agree. I agree with what you said.
Yeah, no, I just feel like some bands, I see a lot of young bands coming through and some of them take themselves so seriously. And you're just like, if you're a bit more chilled and a bit more like, this is fun, what I'm doing is amazing, you might enjoy it more because it might not last forever.
Yeah. Do you know what? I got into a lot of British bands sort of in recent years. I really got into Death Havana. And I've listened to a couple of podcasts where James Beck-Galodi's been on there. And I always remember him saying, like, a lot of the younger bands or the sort of upcoming bands, I mean, they'll only be supporting, but they're like cocky little wankers. Like
yeah, that happens a lot. I notice. They
sort of get a bit uptight, and I mean, maybe we were like that at times. And but again,
I think if we supported like a bigger band, I think we're too scared to be arseholes, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we were arseholes when we supported Wheatus because I mean that was a big gig for us. It was.
Yeah, I think we did.
They were the arsehole.
Yeah. Goddamn American headline band.
And you know what really infuriates me about Wheatus, right? Sort of going back to that subject. The only remaining member of that band is the frontman.
Yeah, it's all completely other people, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's just a terrible sentence, sorry.
No, it's bonkers. But yeah, strange. Just to put you on the spot, so this is the last question.
Go on.
What was your favourite Catch Me Comet song and why?
Ooh, I liked. Is it not Lost Out? What's the other one? I can't remember what it's called. Give me a second. What's it called? The one with the weird bit of a hi-hat symbol in the middle with Todd screaming in the lyrics.
I think that was Lost Out, wasn't it? Lost Out, break
Maybe
out.
It was.
Was it?
It's bad. I can't remember the names, isn't it? I like Jack as well. Jack was really cool.
Yeah, I remember Sam brought that idea into us, and Todd was like, "This is shit. We're going to tear it apart," and we just made it a song that was just so incredible. I think we used to sort of finish a lot of our gigs off for that song because it was just so like high paced and.
It's just a really nice song.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I might talk to Sam more about that song, but it was sort of, I think he wrote it for his brother.
Yeah, it was for his brother, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a good song.
I can't remember the lyrics personally, but I just remember it was a really fun guitar riff, and the lyrics were good.
I mean, funny enough, Todd's was "Happy Summer, Lonely Winter," which I think I might just slap on the end of the podcast episode and let people
First
sort
ever
of.
song.
Yeah, I mean, Todd said like we wrote it in my bedroom. I wrote the riff, the intro to that song on the toilet.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going back to late 2005, but Christ, it only seems like yesterday.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, go for it. Shoot away, man.
What is your least favourite song to play live?
Oh, to play live. I mean, if it was the out of the cover songs, I fucking hated playing "The Boys Are Back in Town." I hated it.
Really, I like that.
Really? Oh, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't like playing that one. But I mean, if it was our own songs, I think I don't know. I genuinely loved all of our songs and playing them live. But I'd probably say it would probably be "Truth Is in the Stars."
I was thinking that either that one or the other one that sounded a bit like Fall Out Boy before Fall Out Boy.
Oh, was it That Kid?
No, that kid was awesome.
No, that was like the song we wrote all together, and it was just. I think when we were in the room and writing those songs, like as a foursome, they were the best songs, and that's probably the best song. The song that sounded like Fall Out Boy pre-Fall Out Boy. It wasn't Remember, was it?
No, I can't remember, to be honest. I don't think it was on EP. It was another one, but it wasn't a bad song. It was just the same beat all the way through. It just bored me a little bit.
That's fair enough. But Zak, thank you for coming on the topic. You are a delightful guest. I mean, I'd love to have, say, all of you back on the show.
Speak to you soon, buddy, too. You take care, too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is when I start to panic and grow. This is what made me fall, and I can't remember how. Go back to where it all begins. Crack against the door, burning from within. No one sees your grace, it's time to shout your name.
There we go, Dan. And I like that one too, but for different. It's a different take on, I guess, the experience. But before we kind of dive into some of your highlights, I've got a question that perhaps some of the other listeners have on the tip of their tongues. Who is Brendan, Dan? Who exactly was Brendan, or is Brendan?
Brendan was basically our secret fifth member. He is an absolute sweetheart. We're still friends now. We still talk. He's engaged now. He's got 2 kids. He always try and keep us in line. He was basically our manager. He looked after our money and stuff like that. I think as you're sort of listening to Sam's interview in part 2, he'd always rock up from work, and he was always in his shirt, tie, and trousers and shoes. But he never quite had a handle on us. We were just a bit wild at that age. But for I'd say it's our last gig. Because to be honest, the last gig I don't really count because it was dreadful. But the last gig, he joined us on stage and he was jumping around all over the place, singing down the mic. He had so much energy, and he probably deserves his own episode with us, Alex, where we can both sort of drill in and get some backstories from him, because I just think he's probably got a different take on the whole Catch Me Comet experience compared to, say, me, Todd, Sam, and Zak.
Somewhat a mascot. And I think in terms of kind of Zak's experience, I think it's, as you say, a bit fighty, especially the last gig with the fisticuffs and being escorted to the car by the bouncers. But again, it's just an interesting kind of take on what gigging's like, and as I guess as you guys are growing up, what it's like to be as a band forming and how you make your way through kind of the music industry as you're performing and some of those stories that go with it. And it's and again a different perspective of the overall experience, which I think was interesting.
I'll cover both stories, to be honest, on the whole fighty punchy stuff. So Guildford, I had a bit of a weird journey up there anyway with the lads. My girlfriend at the time was going through a bit of a rough patch with her family at home. For whatever reason, they had like a big argument and she was on the phone crying, etc. So my mood sort of plummeted quite quickly anyway. And then we get to this pub in Guildford. We set up, we sound check, and then we go sit in the pub, have a drink. We only drank Coke, really. We didn't really drink beer or alcohol because it was I don't know who frowned upon it. I think it might have been Todd and Sam. It was like, no, you can't drink until you're on stage and come off it. Fine, whatever. So anyway, these two chavs walk past and they sort of start taking the piss out of Todd, I think. And we were quite defensive of each other, and we sort of took a bit of offence. And luckily, nothing really happened in this scenario. These two chavs buggered off, and that was it really. But gig ruined. There was no real energy on the stage that night, and whilst we got praise from some of the other bands, they said, "Yeah, you're a bit stoic on stage. Like you weren't really that energetic." Whereas usually we were. It was just, I think that we let that experience sort of ruin it. The last gig, well, I mean, this is so we were quite defensive of each other, and some of the mates of one of the other bands that were playing that night were a bit rowdy. Started picking on Brendan, and like I say, Brendan's a sweetheart. He's not the punchy, fighty kind of person, and someone grabbed him by the throat, and Zak lumped this guy for real, like he probably lumped him, and then
It's fair enough, you know. If someone takes your mate by the throat or tries to have a go, you do step in, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real like flight or fight moment, and I was ready for a fight myself. I don't know why. I was just suddenly like, hang on a minute, there's not something right here. But this guy's mate sort of tried to get involved and tried to take a swing for Zak and slipped up on a pint of beer that had been spilt. But you know, whatever. Security guards, bouncers all dive in, like dragging people out, and we had to stop these guys from getting Zak kicked out. We're like, he's in our band, like you can't kick him out. But anyway, we got a word that these guys were going to get their mates. But the guy Zak lumped, there was claret everywhere. Like this, he had a massive gash on his head. So he must have gone to hospital eventually. But we were like, we caught wind that these guys were waiting for us. So we got escorted to Zak's car, and luckily nothing really came of it. But it was just a bit scary, you know. It's not really what you want to do to round off your last gig, but it is what it is.
It is, warts and all. And that's I guess two interviews of the three. So the next episode we've got Sam. We thought we'd break it up into two. But I mean, as a whole, Dan, in terms of your conversations with Todd and Zak, kind of, have you got any kind of closing reflections on those interviews as a whole?
It was nice to catch up. It was nice to sort of reminisce, and it's nice to sort of hear their highs and lows. And I think, interestingly, the highs always outweigh the lows. Again, it all sort of reflects again in Sam's interview, but I think Sam sort of dives a little bit deeper, which I think people will find quite interesting. But I mean, you can sort of tell from the highs and lows because it's almost like a shit sandwich, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's great to see them both go on to sort of be sort of successful away from the band. Just to sort of fill in on Zak's part, because I obviously missed my cue to ask him the question. So he became a roadie. And I said, I've totally forgot, long day, but who have you been touring with? So he'd been on tour with Robbie Williams and the UK leg of the Rolling Stones. And he was Rowan Atkinson, or Mr. Bean's keyboard tech at the Olympics in 2012.
There you go.
So out of all of us, he was probably the more successful.
Claims to fame.
Indeed. But I suppose, I mean, I'll dive into some of the other backstories in part two.
Indeed. So we'll probably drop that in the following week, but that will close off the two-parter. So that's what's coming up next week, Dan. But what else have we got coming up in the next coming weeks, just in case our listeners want to get involved and perhaps drop us their comments or their voice messages to be part of the show?
Indeed. So we'll be rounding up WandaVision, our sort of roundup. It's going to be a week later than usual, so we'll be diving in, give you some more of those tasty Easter eggs that aren't related to the Easter Bunny, of course.
No.
Get involved. We are going to be talking about Cobra Kai. We've already got some good comments.
Oh, yes.
So tell us about your favourite fight scenes, your favourite moments, your favourite character and favourite character developments, because we want to hear it and we want to talk about it.
Oh, yes.
And I think you've got some, or you're lining up some special guests, Alex.
We are, yeah. We'll have Peter, who runs About My Area in Portsmouth. So we're going to be continuing the conversations with local creatives. They've got a new app platform, so I'll be speaking to Peter in the coming weeks, and a very special, hopefully, interview with local artist Fark, Fark, for those who perhaps aren't from Portsmouth and perhaps want to Google him. Other search engines are available, but they're not as good as Google. So yeah, we've got a couple of interviews lined up, so a nice mix there for you guys. But if you have any questions or queries or want to get involved, we've got some contact details down, haven't we?
Indeed. We are on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at On The Topic Podcast. We have Gmail, which is onthetopicpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there is Anchor. So if you want to leave us a voice message and be a part of the show, click on that link, use your mobile phone, accept yes, and speak, and we will plug you in.
There you go. But yeah, for another week, I've been Alex.
I've been Dan.
And we'll see you next week, part 2.
Boom. Hello, you are listening to On The Topic Podcast, the only show that doesn't catch you.
Sorry, hang on. Sorry, you might as well do that again. I think you went a bit robotic at the hello. Poor timing from the computer connection.
Cheers, Zoom. Right. Again. Fuck's sake. We can chuck this in the bloopers. It's fine.
Bloopers.
Bloopers.